start with some breaking news out of California. A judge says the Trump administration violated federal law when it decided to put National Guard boots on the ground in Los Angeles this summer. You may remember that deployment was in response to protests against immigration enforcement operations. But in a 52-page filing that was just out today, U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer found the administration broke an 1878 act that prohibits the use of military for domestic law enforcement. For much more on this, let's go live to the White House and CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro. Aaron, thank you for joining us today. What more can you tell us about this ruling?
Yeah, Mugo, that act that you mentioned, the Posse Comitatus Act, blocks the use of military for domestic law enforcement, and that's the main violation that the federal judge in California found. As part of the ruling, they say that the administration cannot use or deploy more National Guard troops to Los Angeles and California for specifically using them as civilian law enforcement. The 300 troops already there and not required to be withdrawn. It reinforces that there are limits on National Guard troops who are deployed, that they can really only be used to protect federal personnel and property and can't be used for traffic or crowd control, which is one of the issues the judge found here, that the National Guard troops were using themselves as well as their vehicles as sort of traffic blockades during these protests. The judge found there that they had violated that act. They do say that there's an injunction that is frozen until September 12, which essentially gives this administration more time in a couple weeks now to appeal this decision.
Okay, Aaron, so this clearly comes at a very interesting time because, as you've been reporting, the administration has been floating the idea of making this same move in a number of cities across the country. They're clearly already doing it in D.C. So how will today's decision from a court impact the possibility of troops deploying to these cities? And I know the president has talked about Chicago possibly being next on that list. What comes now?
Yeah, this decision only applies to California, but the judge in his ruling showed concern over National Guard troops being called to other California cities like Oakland or San Francisco, and said that President Trump is, quote, essentially creating a national police force that he is chief of. We know that the Attorney General in Illinois has threatened to sue if the National Guard is deployed to Chicago. Take a listen to our colleague Ed O'Keefe's interview with Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker when asked about this.
We hope that they don't send any troops along with ICE, and if they do, they'll be in court pretty quickly because that is illegal. Posse Comitatus does not allow U.S. troops into U.S. cities to do, to fight crime, to be involved in law enforcement. That's not their job.
If they're doing federal immigration work, a judge might say, if they're protecting those federal agents, that's okay. I mean, you'll just fight that in court as long as you can?
Well, National Guard troops, any kind of troops on the streets of an American city don't belong unless there is an insurrection, unless there is truly an emergency. There is not.
The administration has argued that the president has constitutional powers that allow him to override that Posse Comitatus Act. The judge here in California said that is an assertion, quote, not ground in history. When it comes to the National Guard troops here in D.C., as you mentioned, they are given limits in terms of what they can do. They can't officially detain people they arrest, and we have actually seen images of them clearing out trash in federal parks.
Okay, Aaron, so while we still have you here, we know the president is set to make what he calls a major announcement later this afternoon. What can we expect from that? Do we have any details at this point?
Yeah, the expectation is that he will announce the move of the U.S. Space Command headquarters from Colorado Springs to Huntsville, Alabama. That's according to U.S. officials and sources familiar with the planning. Mr. Trump brought back the U.S. Space Command force, reestablished it during his first term. But President Biden, during his term, had decided to keep that command center in Colorado rather than move it to Alabama, which President Trump wanted to do at the end of his first term. This time around, he's looking to fulfill that promise and move it to Huntsville.
Yep, certainly looks like he is. All right, CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro, thank you so much for your time today.